Let me introduce us. We're from Jigsaw. I'm from Jigsaw. Then my colleagues, Paul Tullock, Megan Brown and Terry Coombs. We're all from the education team. We are the trainers at Jigsaw. And I'd like to welcome our guests today, Liz Keeble, Katharine Sweatman and Steph Brown, all from different schools around the country that have done some fantastic stuff with the community. Because this webinar is about engaging the community. So I'm going to, I'll do a bigger introduction to these guys later on into the session. But we have got some really nice, interesting information that they're going to share with you today. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're sharing. I'm going to now pass over to my colleague, Paul Tullock, who's going to start off the session and talk about the community. And I know he's going to share a screen. So over to you, Paul.
Hi, Rich. Thank you. Yes, my name is Paul Tullock. I am one of the professional development consultants for Jigsaw24, and I work in the north of England. I'm just going to share my screen with you now, and we'll get started. So our webinar today is all about engaging the community. So first of all, I'm just going to pop a little question just in the chat there. What is community? And what does it mean? Just going to give you about 30 seconds to a minute just to kind of jot down any answers there. Obviously, community has a variety of meanings. It's got a wide range in meaning. And while you're just typing those in, I'm just going to go into the very basic definition from the Oxford Dictionary. It's a unified body of individuals, a group of like-minded, where they're all linked with a common interest. Now, obviously, during this unprecedented time of COVID and the pandemic and various stages of lockdown throughout the country, technology has played a huge part in bringing our community closer together, but helping us to stay included and in contact with other people and connected. So things such as that maybe we were using before, but we may have taken this for granted a little bit, things like FaceTime, Zoom, Facebook, Instagram, they've all helped us to stay connected. And I'm sure we've done lots of wide-ranging things, from family Zoom quiz nights and those kind of things. And it's looking at how we have stayed connected as individuals in our own communities, but then we're going to look at how that has happened in schools up and down the country. So another quick question that I would kind of like you to answer at the end of this is your experiences of what you've done as well. So what does the school community look like? Now, the school community obviously can be quite different to the wider overall community. So at the heart of the school community, we have the school. This is the kind of close or the immediate school community. So at the heart of it, we've got pupils. Another huge important part of that is the teachers and the teaching staff and any other staff who are linked to the school. Then we've got families. Obviously, families are hugely important and a hugely important part of the school community. And then we also have the governors, and we branch out to the governors. Now, these are the immediate community, and technology plays a part in schools in linking these closer communities together. And I'm sure we were all doing things before the pandemic came along, and we were all using technology in various ways to link our school community. So we were doing things such as maybe staying in touch with our parents, working together as staff, as a wide-ranging group of staff, working alongside the teaching assistants, obviously linking that to the pupils and sharing the progress and the feedback with our governors. But then you have the wider community as well. So we've got other local schools, universities. We also have other people within the wider community who may not be directly connected to the school communities, whether that be the older generation or just neighbours. We have local charities. We have local services as well. Obviously, we've been doing things with local in schools with our local services for a long time. We've got local businesses as well. how do we interact with local businesses? And then on a much bigger scale, we've got the world, the wider community. How do we provide those real world life experiences that connect to the community? So my question, which I'd just like to pop in the chat, and I'd like to find out what has, you know, your experiences so far and what you've done already is, how do you engage your school community at the moment? Then we're going to pass it over and we're going to hear to three brilliant educators who have done lots of interesting things engaging their school communities. I'm just going to hand over to Rich to kind of introduce our guests.
Thank you, Paul. All right, so we have our three guests there, and I have to say thank you so much, all of you, for actually coming today. Liz is the first one. Liz works at Vange Primary School as the head teacher there. Now, Liz has been doing some fantastic stuff with the community for a long time now, ever since you know, she's been really part of the school. So and I'm going to let her explain what her journey's been and how the journey before, obviously, the pandemic, and then during the pandemic, and how technology has really supported the way that she's been dealing with the community. So I know there's some fantastic things that Liz is going to actually share with you. Next on the list will be Katharine's from Furze Platt Junior School, and she's the Year 3 teacher and safeguarding lead at the school and specialist. So, and Katharine has had a big impact in the way that the iPads are being used within the school and within the wider community, and how she's been using the iPads and the technology within the school. So Katharine will be first. She'll be coming up first as the first speaker. And then finally we have Steph Brown. Steph is from Battle Hill Primary School. She's the Year 4 teacher and computing lead. And I know Steph has been doing a lot with the local community and community within the school, because obviously implementing an iPad program, it does involve, there's a lot of things that need to happen in order for that to work effectively, and it does involve using that community. So I know Steph has been having some interaction with the local community outside of the school as well. So there's a lot of things. I know she's been working with the care homes and things like that as well. So Steph will be the third speaker in our webinar today. So I would like to, on that note, I'd like to hand over to Katharine, who's going to start the guest speakers today. So Katharine, over to you.
Okay. Hello, my name's Katharine Sweatman and I'm a Year 3 teacher at Furze Platt Junior School in Maidenhead. So Furze Platt Junior School is an innovative large primary school. It has multi-form entry and we take 90 children from a year from age 7. So the school was rated outstanding in its latest Ofsted, and the majority of our children come from our Federation Infant School. So we've had a small bank of iPads across the school for several years, and we could see the motivational effect that had on children and the potential uses for creating learning throughout the curriculum. A little under 2 years ago, the ethos at school of stimulating our pupils' learning with enriching activities became an enhanced vision of using one-to-one iPads across the school. So I'm going to have a chat to you today about how we engage school staff, children, governors, and the parental community in our vision, and the critical steps we used to make a success of the project so far. We've still got a long way to go. Okay, with a large primary school, we had to find the funding for nearly 400 iPads if we were going to be a one-to-one iPad school. And we knew that much funding would ultimately have to come from parents. There was no way we as a school could fund it. So the solution to start with was to introduce a class set of 30 iPads to Year 3 children, the children aged 7. The aim of which was to prove to parents that the iPad was such an invaluable tool in the classroom that they would be willing to finance their child's iPad over the coming 3 years in a similar way as having a mobile phone contract. So Most staff were enthusiastic about the one-to-one iPad vision, but some were more reticent. The first step in engaging the school staff was to make sure they had the tools to learn the new skills they'd need to be able to fully engage the children. So new iPads were purchased for teachers, ensuring they had the software, and the software they were using was up to date, and they had free rein to explore any apps that were going to be useful to them. In addition, Apple TVs were installed in every classroom, enabling the iPads to be used instead of desktops and smartboard software as the main teaching tool. Many of our teachers had some experience of using the iPads, but they were by no means experts. And as the new iPads had been allocated to the Year 3 children, staff training was focused initially on the Year 3 teaching staff. Staff had tailored group and individual sessions on the Apple apps, such as Keynote, Clips, iMovie, and Numbers. And as part of the training, the use of the iPads was written into the curriculum planning. So teachers were using and refining their new skills on a daily basis, and they were sharing their ideas and knowledge with the children. Right from day one, the motivation and engagement of the children using the iPads was never in doubt. Geography lessons on settlements, where you have to build your own settlement using Minecraft, or visiting the Arctic Circle using Google Expeditions, is not work. However, moving from an iPad being a luxury addition to the classroom, used once or twice a week, to being as vital in the classroom as a pencil and exercise book required a different mindset from the children. As part of their ICT lessons, the children were taught how to use Keynote and Book Creator. Although some of this teaching was done by the class teachers, much of the time was spent allowing the children to explore the features on their own. By giving children small projects to complete independently, they not only discovered more about the apps and their capabilities, but they were able to embed their skills by teaching others. A great motivation session for my class of 7-year-olds was taking them to a class further up the school to teach the older children how to use Book Creator. And the transferable skills within the Apple apps, such as the features behind the paintbrush tool, mean that switching between apps is inherently easy for the children. Having the iPads constantly to hand in the classroom and the screens instantly available to be shared with others meant that they quickly became an intrinsic part of school life. The children became adept at using them, not only for the mundane tasks of checking spellings, but to improve their vocabulary using a thesaurus. And as their skills and independence have increased, the children have become more creative in demonstrating their learning, not only by enhancing their work with pictures, but creating videos to role-playing interviews with historic figures and using sophisticated animations in Keynote, coupled with music they've created in GarageBand. The opportunities for collaborative working with the iPads have been groundbreaking and the key motivational factor in the children's engagement. Children can add individual parts to a bigger project, reorder, edit, discuss and improve their work in ways that are impossible on paper. This bigger picture working has been particularly motivating for children who find traditional writing tasks difficult, as it's enabled them to contribute their ideas with the support of their peers. Because the editing on the iPad is often easier than on paper, we've also flipped the writing in some projects. Rather than handwriting and editing on a piece of paper with much crossing out, resulting in unreadable scripts that are often then typed for final presentation, for some projects we've edited the writing directly onto the iPad and then used the final edit on the iPad to copy and present in handwritten form. This approach has been particularly engaging for our higher ability writers who've been able to easily experiment with different vocabulary and sentence order without constantly writing and rewriting their ideas. And what better way to engage parents in the one-to-one iPad vision could there be than through their own children? The children quickly became experts at sharing their learning with parents, grandparents, and other family members via Seesaw. Another engagement bonus with Seesaw is not only does the work provide a talking point at home, but parents can add their own comments to their child's work. After about 4 months of having the iPads in year 3, we invited parents into the classroom to see firsthand what the children were doing, came to work on a collaborative task with their children. And we followed up the session with a survey of parents asking whether the funding of an iPad would be something they'd be prepared to consider in the future. A substantial amount of parents were keen to get this scheme up and running, but unfortunately, COVID-19 has had a considerable impact on the plans and we've had to delay. However, many of our parents were so engaged with the concept of one-to-one iPads within the classroom, when the decision was made to delay the project for a year, they managed to raise enough money within the school to fund a further set of 30 iPads. If we're to realise the vision of one-to-one iPads within the school, we know the continued engagement of parents is essential. And as part of this, information is published fortnightly in the school newsletter, highlighting to parents what the children have been doing with the iPads and giving tips and features we have taught the children in school. But the vision of a one-to-one iPad project is a school-wide project, and therefore, as the project progressed, engagement with the whole staff became paramount. Training was run with teaching staff with a focus on the Apple Everyone Can Create ideas, and particularly combining with multimedia with Keynote. As both knowledge and confidence has increased within the staff, they've been inspired by their own learning to instill the use of iPads further within the curriculum. Feedback from teaching assistants indicated that they too wanted to be involved in the iPad vision. So training for teaching assistants was focused on accessibility within the iPads. This motivated the teaching assistants to be more hands-on with the iPads and gave them the knowledge of how to enhance the learning of the children with specific educational needs, using features such as the dictation tool and the iPad colour filters. Coupled with the training of staff, weekly flyers were put up on the staff notice board with iPad tips such as using the spacebar as the mouse, how to add features to the control centre. Ideas of how the iPads have been used in lessons are regularly shared in staff meetings. And in addition, all staff are signposted to the Apple Teacher Learning Centre, with those gaining their Apple Teacher badges being celebrated. The progress we've made towards the one-to-one iPad vision and the school-wide training of teachers has been a major asset during the recent lockdown. Staff were able to support children with a range of hybrid learning consisting of live Zoom lessons, keynote presentations, quizzes, and Seesaw activities. A good demonstration of how engaged the staff are in both teaching and learning with the iPads is the inclusion of multimedia resources and videos recorded by teachers during lockdown. These short how-to videos have allowed children to revisit concepts that they've covered in Zoom lessons independently as needed while they were completing their own activities. For teachers trying to juggle teaching key worker children in the classroom and those learning from home via Zoom, the use of Seesaw has been a huge bonus. Marking the tasks and giving feedback is both quick and easy and personal to the learner. For parents, the clear signposting of tasks and activities within Seesaw has engaged both the parents and children in the home learning process. It also meant that despite the competing pressures from homeschooling and home working, many of our parents were highly complimentary about the lockdown provision we were able to provide. A significant engagement factor for the use of iPads in the classroom for teachers is the reducing of marking and assignment preparation time. Using their new skills, the setting of assignments via Seesaw on the iPads has increased the participation in the tasks by children compared to when they were home learning before the summer, and has enabled staff across the year groups to share activities with each other rather than constantly reinventing the wheel. So I would say my top tips for engaging staff, people, parents towards the vision of one-to-one iPads is making sure everyone has the tools and the training to make the project a success, keeping everybody informed about how things are going, encouraging teamwork between pupils, teachers, parents, governors, and responding to feedback from everybody. We believe that the move towards one-to-one iPads has given our pupils and staff the skills that would enable them to discover and develop their futures.
Katharine, fantastic. Thank you so much. That was I've been very much involved with some of the stuff that you're doing at your school, and it's so great to hear some of that, all of that was happening there. I'd like to now move on to Liz Keeble. Liz is the head teacher, like we said earlier, the head teacher of Vange Primary, and she's been doing some fantastic stuff with the community pre-lockdown, and obviously with the influx of the pandemic. So Liz, over to you.
Hi Richard, and thank you for inviting me this afternoon. I thought it'd be useful to give you a bit of context about our school. We are the oldest and smallest school in Basildon in Essex. We have 100 children on site, so only 15 in a year group, 8 acres of land, and we are slap bang in the middle of the most deprived ward in the borough. So we have around 45% of our children claiming free school meals or pupil premium. Around 40% of our mums have mental health issues, and about 80% of our community don't drive. So when we talk about deprivation, we're not just talking about money, we're talking about experience, we're talking about exposure to culture, we're talking about exposure to things that we may take for granted. So when I took over as head in 2016, my target was to get as many members of the community involved with the school as we possibly could. And we started with parents. We started looking at how we were communicating with parents. And I very quickly realised that it was absolutely futile sending out a newsletter every week, because a large proportion of our community couldn't actually read it. And the rest probably lacked the skills maybe to retain what they were reading, or even had the patience to read it in the first place. So we replaced our newsletter with a weekly head teacher video blog, which I posted on our Facebook page and also on our website, and that proved to be really popular with the parents, because they could literally just have me on droning in the background while they were cooking their tea. And if there was anything that they'd forgotten, they could just revisit the Facebook video. And Facebook became a very significant driver for us and our communication with parents. It was a way that we put messages out to parents. We reminded parents about, you know, when term dates was starting again, if swimming was coming up, if there was an event coming up, we would use Facebook to deliver those messages. We began to use applications like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, to send messages to parents, because one of the big issues for them was credit on their phone. So with our attendance policy, for example, parents would need to phone the school on day one. If they didn't have any credit, they wouldn't be able to do that, but they were quite happy to message us on Facebook Messenger or on WhatsApp, because they didn't have to have any credit for that. They could piggyback very often on their neighbour's Wi-Fi connection, which is often what they do. So we very quickly got into using a whole range of social media to communicate with our parents, and we also started making use of what we call the pingling, which is a service that comes via our website provider, and we can send out push notifications on mobile phones as reminders to parents, and they love that. You know, that's become invaluable. So we were already communicating with our parents in that way before the pandemic, and during the pandemic we closed down all our lines of communication except Facebook and email. We set up one email account that we called COVID-19 at vange.essex, and all communication with parents came in via that inbox, and that was manned by all staff pretty much 24/7. Not quite, well, I mean, we did sleep, but it was pretty much manned all the time, and that was fabulous. That's one of the systems that we have continued post lockdown. So we now have set up a range of email accounts for parents to communicate with, and that is proving highly effective. And it also means that the communication with teachers is much more immediate. So we've set those up for every cohort. From our point of view, it's also very beneficial because we have an electronic copy of the conversation. So nobody can really argue who said what because it's in writing. So that's very useful at times. So that has been brilliant. And during the lockdown, parents really appreciated the Facebook updates. I would give them, do live broadcasts around what had been released in the media, because our parents are quite vulnerable to fake news. We gave lessons via Facebook on fake news and how to identify it and not to get too excited if certain things were being circulated in the media, because we do have a lot of vulnerable parents. You know, they were very, very scared during that first part, you know, this time last year, a lot of them were terrified. So actually having a platform like Facebook that they're very familiar with a familiar face who's communicating and actually interpreting some of those messages for them, that was invaluable. And via doing that, we also accessed a lot more of the wider community, because friends and family were then saying to their friends and family, you know, what, log on to ours, because, you know, our school are putting out these messages every week. Teachers began to share work on Facebook, and again, we still do that now. So Facebook is our main platform for sharing the children's work to the wider community. The platform that we use in school is Google. We use Google Suite and Google Classroom. And that came in terms of engagement for our immediate school community. So for students and staff, Katharine talked earlier about a Flip the Pen project and a strategy that they used. That was how we started with our digital revolution in school, because we had a problem with boys writing. Boys didn't want to write, they were not motivated. And when we did some pupil perceptions with them, it was because they struggled with handwriting, they struggled with spelling. There were too many things for them to negotiate in terms of executive function. So the writing was suffering. And we said, okay, we'll give you some iPads. We'll use some iPads. You can do your writing on the iPad. And it truly was unbelievable to see the difference in these boys who had previously not wanted to write at all, but all of a sudden couldn't stop writing and actually then wanted to carry on at home. Can we do this at home? Can I finish my story at home? They were getting up out of their seats and showing each other their work. So the peer review that we'd been trying to encourage them to do with their books, which they didn't want to show each other because they were embarrassed about what it looked like, suddenly became pride. You know, it's, oh, read my story, you know, I've used this word, look at this. And that has just developed over the last 5 years. And it is one of our main drivers in school. We use digital learning as much as we possibly can. Most of our writing and most of our foundation work is done digitally. So that's either using a word processing app, or the children might produce slides to present a piece of work. And we're trying to get them into video and using video and encouraging them to use audio visual media to record their work. So it has been a bit of a journey. So when we went into the pandemic, we were very well prepared. We were very lucky because we had already been 2 or 3 years on that journey, and we ran some workshops. We did see the closure coming, I have to say. So the week before the announcement came, we had our parents in for some workshops to teach them how to log on to the children's Google login, because that was the biggest issue. The biggest issue was how to, because some of the children were so young, where they have support in school, to log on, they would have needed that at home. So we went through that with the parents. We had a few sessions just before the announcement was made. So we were pretty well prepared. And we have continued to refine those strategies. We use Google Meet for our face-to-face platform, and we do one-to-ones on there and interventions. We have virtual assemblies, which again we are going to carry on now that we're out of lockdown. But it has been a real revolution. It has been a wonderful experience for everyone, and the parents are hugely appreciative of the involvement that they have in school, and the fact that they now see so much. When what I call the old pen and paper route, they would only see books on parents' evening, whereas now they can see the work that their children are producing all the time, and that's wonderful for them to have that involvement in their children's learning. So it's been a very, very positive experience for us. It's hard work, and you've got to have everybody on message, but it has been digitalisation has been a key driver at all levels for getting our community involved. So I would say just do it. If as a recommendation, top tip is just go digital, because you will never look back.
Liz, fantastic. Thank you so much. And you've reminded me of so many different things from the past there. Fantastic. Thanks, Liz. Okay, now I'll move on to Steph. So Steph's at Battle Hill Primary School and the Year 4 lead, and been very heavily involved in the iPad and the community, and how the iPad has affected the community. Over to you, Steph.
Hi, thanks. So I'm Steph Brown. I'm the Year 4 teacher at Battle Hill Primary School, but I'm also the ICT lead. And I kind of inherited that role a couple of years ago. We're a 2-form entry school in the northeast of England, and we have a higher than average number of pupil premium children. So quite similar to the last school that we've just spoken to. We started our journey 2014 with teacher iPads. So our journey sounds quite similar to the first school that we heard from, in that we had teacher iPads initially, and they were given out to staff and teaching assistants, and basically it was a kind of get to know how to use them. We had a lot of training which Jigsaw had provided, and it was really just kind of getting everyone familiar with using an iPad. We had a lot of staff who'd had iPhones, but a lot of staff didn't and felt a bit nervous about it. So I think we initially invested a lot of time and effort in the training side of it for teaching staff, because there was no point in rolling out the devices if people didn't feel happy and confident using them. We then had a class set of 30 iPads, and we had a lot of training on how they can be used in the classroom to enhance learning, which was the main priority for getting them. And also for us, it was about workflow. How could we use the iPads so that we could actually work smarter, not harder, as the phrase is? And are there any ways that we could sort of make things a little bit easier for us in terms of photocopying, cutting down photocopying a bill and things like that, which has happened. And over what happened was we had the iPads, but they were kind of, with being 2-form entry, they were to go around the whole school. So we had all the training, we had our staff iPads, but the class set of iPads, everybody wanted them, because you can imagine you've got a class set of 30 kids were excited about having them and really keen to use them, but then we kind of got them one afternoon a week or one morning a week. So you had to really plan carefully when you wanted to use them. And when we talk about community, it was really our school community that kind of brought about our iPad rollout, because we had the children were just blown away by what the iPads could do and how that it was changing their learning. But we had a couple of children who had iPads at home and had asked the question, well, could we bring our iPads in? So as a staff team, we kind of thought, well, it's not a great sort of thing if we had one, or 2 children in the classroom who had an iPad, what would the rest of the children be doing? So one of the parents said, oh, wouldn't it be great if we had iPads where everybody had one and they could use them. We found out about the parent portal scheme, where the parents lease the iPads over a term. It's usually 2 years in our school, but it can be more. And they pay monthly for the iPad, and then at the end of the lease term, it's theirs to keep. So we initially rolled that out to year 5 and 6. And there was a massive take up, because just like the other schools were saying, the parents, I think initially are a little bit worried about, are they going to be just sitting on screens all day? Are they going to be playing games? But once they see how much it changes the child's learning experience, they're completely, taken away by how much it actually, makes the learning better. So they really want to do as much as they can to get the iPads. And initially year 5 and 6 had the iPads. And then about 3 years ago, we rolled it out to year 4. Then we had year 4, 5 and 6. And then about 2 years ago, we went to year 3. So we're currently 1-to-1 from year 3 up to year 6. We'll have a small bank of iPads in school for the children who don't buy into the scheme for various reasons. Sometimes they have an iPad at home and they just want to keep that for home use. So those children who don't buy into the scheme, we have a school bank of iPads that we have in school, and the child uses the same iPad every day, so it's personalised to them. And the only difference is that it stays in school to be charged overnight, and then they use it again the next day. So hoping next year to roll out 1-to-1 right up from year 1, and I think that's been kind of pushed ahead a little bit by what we've seen during lockdown, because we've seen how easy it was for the year 3 up to year 6 to literally switch to, when they were doing their home learning, to switch to that being digital. We use Showbie, so we had all of the children in Key Stage 2 using Showbie, and that in itself was fantastic, because we were able to set the work. It just followed exactly the same principle as it would be classroom learning. So they had exactly the same lessons in the same format that they would have in school, and they complete the work on there, then they send it back and we can mark it. And well, year 1 and 2 we used in Seesaw initially, but once they seen how great that Showbie was, they said, well, could we not get on Showbie and set that out to our children as well? So we had a little bit of a trial period where they were predominantly Seesaw in year 1 and 2, but then we switched over. Partway through lockdown, we set everyone up in year 1 and 2 with a Showbie license, and then they trialed that, and actually they much preferred it. The feedback from the parents was great. They had that interaction with the teacher where, on their feed, if they weren't sure about a question, they could ask and the teacher responds straight back. You can make screen recordings if they're stuck on a particular maths question, so you can see that they're stuck on question 2, you make a quick screen record it and then upload it so that they can see it straight away. Oh yes, I get that, that's how you do it. So that was absolutely fantastic for us. And then obviously Key Stage 1 decided that they would stick with Showbie after seeing how fantastic it was. And things like giving feedback, it's instant. We'd get a notification saying that a child had responded to something. You go straight on and you can respond back, and it could be something like the parent saying, oh, I'm going to have to, do this work this afternoon, because obviously a lot of the parents, they were trying to work and homeschool their children at the same time. And it's kind of knowing your parents, and they can, they feel so much happier being able to contact you and just have that dialogue there with you. So you know what's happening. And as I say, feedback from parents was amazing. And going forward, obviously we're keeping Showbie because we use it anyway in school. Because we've now started making multimedia books for some of our foundation subjects. So French, DT, RE and PSHE, we make the books on pages, and then we send it out to the children and they complete the work on there, and then they put them into Showbie, and they're stored there as a, they can do more work on them if they want, or they're just there so that we've got evidence of that instead of using books all the time. And again, they're able to go home and show their parents what they've been doing on their iPad, and add more to it. The amount of times that a child goes home and then comes back and, oh, miss, look what I've added to this last night. Or, you know, they get so excited and drawn into a project, particularly if we're doing topic work, and they're just so keen to keep going, and they bring it back the next day, and then that inspires another child. So that's been fantastic. And also for staff, you know, their feedback has been, it's been so much easier, because we did decide not to do live lessons, which was a decision we made as a school. So I felt as though we didn't actually miss out on anything, because we had that constant dialogue with the parents, and, you know, they could come to us anytime, and we would just respond back straight away. When we're talking about community links, we've taken the iPads out of school before, quite a lot. We take part every year in the first Lego League, which, if anybody's heard about that before, the children get given a project that they have to do. And my Lego team a couple of years ago, they designed and made a prototype of a futuristic care home. So they wanted to make they were worried about, it was a community project, and they were worried about how the elderly people across the roads, they have to carry money around, they might feel a bit nervous. We went into the care home and we interviewed the residents, and we asked them questions about, you know, how do you feel going out of the care home? You know, how do you feel about carrying money and that kind of thing? And from that was where they got their evidence for what they wanted to make in their futuristic care home. But I think the main thing that came from it was the residents were just so excited about the children coming, and we made it a regular thing. We'd had some lottery funding where we were able to go in and do crafts. And it was actually on speaking to some of the residents that the children found out that they really, they loved the idea of being able to use technology better, because they were all really receptive to how, you know, all this technology was out there, and they knew they didn't know how to use it. You know, they would say, oh, I don't know how to do that, I don't know how to do it, but I would love to learn. And that was the main thing that came from it, that they really wanted to learn how to use it. So we took the children back. My class went, so we went as a class, and we split up around the care home. There was 2 floors and various different lounge areas, and we sent the children off to do different tasks. And some of the best things that came out of it were when they were teaching the residents how to take selfies, and how to add different things to the faces, and kind of distort the faces, and using the camera in different ways. They absolutely loved that. But we actually had the most fun with GarageBand. The residents couldn't believe that they were making music on this, what they called the machine. And, you know, they were looking at the machine and looking at GarageBand, and they were just completely blown away that they were playing a set of drums. And they were looking at the children saying, is that me playing that? And they were just, they absolutely loved it. We showed them like lots of different apps like Sketches and things where they just really had fun with the iPads. And like I say, it's a care home that we've had quite a lot of contact with over the years. That it's literally just around the corner from the school, and we've got amazing links with them. From a school point of view, moving forward, all of our staff, not that long ago, just before lockdown, the first lockdown, they all qualified as Apple teachers. So that was a process that we managed to get done over a few sessions. And every teacher and TA in school is now an Apple teacher. We've rolled out Apple Classroom. So the teacher is in full control in the classroom now, which was something that we didn't really look into before, but we're still in the process of that, because we just got going before the first lockdown happened. So we've got managed Apple IDs now, so that's made it much easier. We've got some training coming up where we're looking at key apps, because we found that we wanted all of the children, when they come up to, say, from Key Stage 1 into Key Stage 2, that they had knowledge of particular apps, so that when we're using pages, they come up with some knowledge. So we've got some training, I think next week, I think that is, from Jigsaw, where we're going to have core apps that each key phase is going to have some training on and become familiar with, to use with their children, so that when they come up, it's going to sort of progress throughout the school, which will be absolutely fantastic. But I think the biggest change for us was moving over to Jam, mobile device management, which we did through Jigsaw. Up until last year, I was managing all of the iPads in school. We've got around, I think, 400 iPads, which I was trying to keep on top of on a daily basis with all the lovely, wonderful things that iPads do when they're not behaving as they should. And I think it was just when we knew that we were going to try and go one-to-one throughout the full school, I think we knew we had to then sort of look at a different way of managing the iPads, and that was to kind of hand over the management side of it. And it's been fantastic. It's really streamlined things. If we get any problems with the iPads, it's literally an email, and you get an email back within minutes with somebody who's onto the problem and getting that problem solved. So I would totally recommend, if anybody has someone in school who's responsible for the mobile device management, to think about that, because that saved us a lot of time. And I think that was pretty much me.
Steph, thank you so much. There's some wonderful things there that you've talked about. I love that bit where you were talking about the older people playing garage band. That I could just see that happening. That was just so brilliant.
Good. I think having had the devices in their hands before this all kicked off was brilliant, and him having his own device has been great, because otherwise he would have ended up sharing with somebody else, one of his sisters. I think we've just about got enough devices to go between them, but not all of them work, and cameras are a bit dicey on some of them, so having his own was really good.
Because you've had the Apple program in school for so long, they've been able to just pick up their iPads and carry on pretty much that they're at school. He's been able to pick up his tablet, he's known exactly where to go for his work, he knows how to go into Zooms, and it's made the process so much better because they already had them skills built in. So I think it's gone really well.
The tools used in nursery were actually Zoom and Tapestry, and I found Zoom really useful for helping with social interaction side of things, while Tapestry, it was really fantastic for being able to access teachers' pre-recorded videos. And also I think that Tapestry gave parents the opportunity, to provide proactive support and to work as a team with the teachers, to see actually how we can do better for our children. I think, the best successes, were actually school and parents finding new ways of working together.
I think the biggest thing for me has been the fact that the lessons have been recorded rather than live.
I think the recorded lessons have been quite good. I think he's quite enjoyed having, you or one of your other colleagues there on the side of the screen taking them through the slides. I think that's made it feel more like a lesson than just to read the slides and do the work.
I think a great success was the way you was checking in with children twice a day. So obviously it made the children still feel connected and part of the community.
There's been English and maths, and obviously phonics for the little ones, and then there's been optional projects, and I think that has worked really well for us. But the optional projects enabled, I think, you guys to fulfill your requirements, but also as parents I felt that much less pressure because it said the word optional. So if we could do it, great, and if we couldn't, I didn't feel worried that we hadn't done it then.
One of the things that was a real success, which was quite recently, is when you started putting the timetable up for him, because I'm working at home, which is useful because I'm here, but also if I'm on a call, I can't always be answering things quite as easily. So having that timetable's worked really well.
Having story time with familiar faces of their teachers made the children so much happier to learn and read.
Lessons where there was more meaningful links made between subjects, I found that really useful. So there was some lessons where it was English and history or English and geography combined. So I felt like we were covering more learning, but not through additional lessons, because time for us has just been a massive factor with having a little one as well. The celebration Zoom, I just thought that was a nice way to end the week, really. Considering the situation was quite unexpected and last minute, I think you guys did a great job. I think she called to tell me about the reading group changing, And I said to her, I know it's really hard and it's not what teachers sign up for, to have to record themselves for parents to watch.
Pretty good. Obviously, we've been able to use Showbie to send messages backwards and forwards as well. So if we've needed to, we can get in touch that way. So yeah, I think good.
I think that, teachers, they really engaged very well with parents every day, and I could actually see them, working hard to provide, various things daily.
It's not just the tablets, it's also the text messages, the emails as well have been handy. Having a way, class discussion, having the parents' questions as part of on Showbie is really good, because instead of making it difficult to get hold of you, for example, I could borrow Alice's tablet, type a quick question in, and then somebody would reply to the question. So it felt like I had easy access to the teachers and the knowledge.
I think him having his own device has been really, really good. One of his sisters in the first lockdown, she only had her phone, and so that made it quite tricky for her. So she was having to come and borrow a laptop if there was something that she needed to do on the laptop, and that it just sort of gives a little barrier, doesn't it, to learning. So I think him having his device that he knew how it worked better than anybody else, put the control in his hands. He's independent enough to sort of pick that up and take it forward. So yeah, I think it's been really, really good.
A routine of doing some tasks on the iPad in the morning independently, especially when I had some meetings, because he kept basically trying all the time to say, oh, come mommy and do that. So I had actually to enable him to be, in a way, able to do things independently. And I was able to do that just because of the iPads and the devices.
Showbie being so well structured, and you guys working in advance, so all the work's there. And even the great things about, when you do the little morning lessons to talk them through what they're doing, that's really good, because the children can sit there, they've got a familiar face, they're being explained by an expert what they need to do, and then they carry on and do it themselves.
So it was even good for me, to see the teachers every day and to see actually what was in place for them. It gave us a structure, and I worked based on that structure.
When she first brought the tablet home and explains how it all worked, I thought, wow. And then when she gets her projects and airdrops them to your screens to show off projects, it's something you'd see, like, I know it sounds really silly, but Star Trek, to me, it's a really futuristic school. And then...
Because all of your kids had iPads, it allowed you to be quite specific in this is how to do it. Because I know with my eldest, they were all on different devices at home, and it meant they had to do everything at the lowest common denominator almost. So even if you just had a phone, that had to work for everything they produced. So I think that's been quite positive, isn't it? All on the same device.
Now, what we'd like to do is obviously share as a team now some of our own top tips. I'm going to start with a top tip, and my tip is, and it's kind of very similar to some of the things that Katharine was saying, because I've been working with Furze, Platt, but I think involving the support staff, I think, is key within the community, because often as trainers and often as teachers, we're the ones expected to use the technology within the classroom, but the support staff, I think, is very key. I was working at a school last week actually, where I did some observations with the support staff, and I'm working with a team of TAs where they are working with individual students at a special school, and it was quite incredible how far forward the support staff were. So one of my top tips then is to really involve the support staff in any implementation of any technology that happens within the school.
Next, it's going to be me. So my top tip is, as parents, we all have our lives to manage, and we all have various things going on. We're all at work, we have our children's homework, we have those types of things. To create engaging learning experiences at home, it doesn't need to be time consuming or massively demanding. It could be you could provide some kind of opportunity to integrate the learning into family time. So it could be, one idea that I used in my school was we made a clips video, and it was when they were exercising during lockdown. We had a little quiz to kind of find things in their local area. So I'm just going to play that video now, and hopefully the sound will play. Hey everyone! Lately we've had to spend a lot of time in our local area, and what I've discovered is our local area is even more beautiful than I first thought. So what we're going to do is you're going to give me a little tour of your local area, but with a twist. You're going to give me some clues, and I have to guess about one of the favourite places that you've discovered in Whitley Bay, Tynemouth, Cullercoats, or anywhere local that you've been. Good luck! When you finish creating your little quiz, upload it into Google Classroom or Seesaw and see if your classmates and I can guess where you were talking about. Can't wait to see what you come up with. So just something simple that you can incorporate into everyday activities and doesn't require lots of preparation with an app like Clips. So there's my quick tip for engaging the community and engaging the parents. I'm just going to pass you over now to Megan.
Thank you. My quick tip links quite nicely actually to what Liz was talking about the engaging in social media. So when I was teaching just before this job, and one of the things I did was share little tutorial videos so that the parents could see. And we also really encouraged parents to tweet from their accounts, and we would reshare some of the learning that they had been up to, so you can see some of the children on walks with their parents. So that constant communication between the two, so that they never felt like they were alone, was really, really key for us. And teachers would share, every teacher had a login. Teachers would share some things about where their learning might be today. They would share best bits of examples of learning, and they would also encourage parents to tweet, and we would retweet them just to keep that kind of communication flowing. So that's my top tip. Making sure that you stay in contact with some form of social media.
Yeah, thank you. So my tip is linked to creativity. Creativity is a key ingredient to gaining community engagement. So what I've got for you is an example of a parental-based workshop where students worked alongside their parents or carers or members of the community to create cartoon versions of themselves. Following a set of easy to follow instructions toward a shared aim. And then in the final clip, you will see and hear the work of both a parent and a child that has collaborated on one project.
I am Leanne! Sammy, oh Sammy, would you like an ice cream? Come and have a look what flavours I have.
Can I have strawberry?
Uh-oh, I'm really sorry, Sammy. We don't have strawberry, only chocolate. I think Daddy ate all the strawberry ones.
Oh, why did Daddy have to eat them all?
So these projects can be adapted to involve different community groups within your local area. And further ideas for creative engagement can be found using the 30 creative ideas for iPads, which include these handy task cards. And I'm just about to drop the link for these in the chat if you are interested.
That's great, thanks Terry. So those are our quick tips as trainers to kind of take away, to use straight away and try and engage the local community and maybe the wider community as well. I'd just like to hand you back over to Rich, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. But I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Liz, Catherine, Steph for your contribution today. It is invaluable. There's so much experience that you've all got. that's and so many fantastic things that you're all doing in your schools to do with the community and engaging the community, getting everybody involved in how we're actually teaching the students that we're teaching. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your input and how you've how and what you've shared today. So that's fantastic stuff. Okay. If there is any questions from anybody, then please feel free to contact us at Jigsaw, either myself, Paul, Megan, or Terry, or anybody else at Jigsaw that you know of, and we will pass these questions on to Liz, Catherine, and Steph. We have come to the, unfortunately, we have come to the end of the webinar, and thank you so much for joining. Thank you.